One of the things I love so much about conscious recovery is that it really is challenging some of the prevailing paradigms, both within the psychology and the addiction treatment field. Do you want to speak to that a little bit? Some people might even find some of the ideas controversial.
Yeah, and what I want to say about that is thank you, actually, because we are in this new era, and more of us are waking up to some new ideas and some new ways of seeing. To be clear, conscious recovery isn't an answer. It's more an opportunity to explore some different possibilities, right? So it will work well with whatever anyone is doing. So if they're part of a recovery support group, if they have a particular type of therapy that's working for them, our hope is that conscious recovery will only enhance that and offer different possibilities. The absolutely last thing I would ever want is for anyone to say conscious recovery is the one and only answer. That's the issue with certain paradigms. The paradigm themselves, the modality itself can be really useful, but if anything or anyone says this is the one and only answer, that's when it becomes restrictive because nothing is the one and only answer for everyone.
Right. And that black and white thinking is part of what's difficult about addiction, is that so many people who are struggling with addiction are seeing things in this black and white, very polarized kind of way. And that includes the way they're seeing themselves as good or bad. I'm fundamentally bad. I'm wrong. I'm broken. And unfortunately, some of the traditional treatment paradigms are reinforcing that by saying, yes, you are defective. Yes, you have a pathology. Let me give you a label. Right?
Yeah, and to take it even further, some people are taught that in their religion, that you're born fundamentally broken. So we're coming in not saying that that's right or wrong, but just asking the question, is there a different possibility? What gets created if you begin to ask yourself the question, what if I were to begin to open up to a different possibility? When I look in the eyes of a newborn child or a very, very young child, what I call the pre-programmed human, I see love, I see light, I see joy. I remember feeling that, and I remember disconnecting from that. And when I look at it through those eyes, I recognize that is the shared experience of humanity, that we do come in as these beautiful beings of light, and then we start to get programmed with religion, with thought patterns, with family systems, with school systems that teach us we're something other than that whole and perfect being.
Right, that we're something other than ourselves, our genuine, authentic selves. And the level of that pain and suffering that gets created from that disconnect, that creates the toxic shame and all of that. And it's no wonder so many people are struggling with addiction and depression and such. And why addressing the spiritual component, like you talk about the 4 rooms. We want to look at the physical, the mental, the emotional. Yes, traditional treatment does a great job at looking all that, but what about the spiritual?
Yeah, and not to be confused with religion, right? So spiritual to me is about that essential truth. And so more and more of us are now starting to ask ourselves the question, what does that mean to me? Not what does that mean to someone else, or someone please teach me, right? So I think the paradigm of the teacher having the answer, I think that paradigm is fading away. We see those structures crumbling. Conscious recovery isn't saying, here's the answer, I have it for you. It's really more a question. What if you're not as messed up as you think you are? What if underneath all of this behavior is a whole and perfect person? What if the behavior or the addiction is actually a strategy that once helped you, but maybe isn't serving you in the way that you want now? That's a totally different way of looking at addiction.
Well, and it's revolutionary and empowering. And I love what you said about, old paradigms crumbling. Why, the living in the question, which is one of the spiritual principles you talk about in the course, when you are living in the question, you also have to ask, where did this belief come from? Is it still serving me? And is it time for something different?
It's so interesting. I think about it from politics, right? They'll say this person flip-flopped because she has a different belief than she did 20 years ago. I mean, I hope so. I hope I have a different point of view than I did 20 years ago.
Yeah.
We're always evolving. We're always opening up to new possibilities. And what I see happening with the way we have viewed addiction is there have been, 1 or 2 paradigms that have been the primary way we view and treat addiction, and they do work well for millions of people, but they also don't work well for everyone. So we want to offer different possibilities, different ways of approaching it, different ways of viewing it, and then also treating it.
Yeah, we want to let things evolve, right? Even medicine, 100, 200 years ago, we only had a couple of tools and things to work with. And now there's so many possibilities, right? I think addiction treatment needs to also continue to expand. And while we're making strides and maybe the, biomedical aspects and medications and things like that, what about the spirit? What about that piece? That hasn't evolved in thousands of years in some paradigms.
Yeah, and I love what you're saying, because truly integrated treatment to me, and maybe treatment's not even the best word, but a truly integrated person is looking at all those rooms you mentioned: physical, intellectual, emotional, spiritual. I'm not really compartmentalized. They're all parts of me. And there are important breakthroughs that have happened in the physical world or the medical world that are groundbreaking and important. There are new ways of looking at brain science that have been really important in shifting the paradigm. What we're saying is there's also this spiritual piece that when we bring that in, as well as the other rooms, we do become more holistic, which really just means a whole person or integrated.
Yes, and you can't address one without addressing the other. They're all interrelated and interconnected. And if you're overlooking any one of those rooms, you're not going to really recover fully.
Right, because there's a part of me that is not being addressed, right? So the Buddhists have a concept of these 4 rooms, and it's really that we need to spend some time in each room. And most of us, myself included, we have a room or two we like to hang out in and maybe not so much look at the other one. So we're offering this possibility that when we spend time in each of these different rooms, that we do become a more whole and complete person. I'm reminded too of working with people that are very, very scientific, that say, well, spirituality is not for me, because they have these ideas about what spirituality is. But when I start talking about vibration and frequency, and I start saying, well, let's look at that scientifically, how frequencies align. And if I'm holding the frequency of there's something fundamentally wrong with me, why would I be surprised that I'm experiencing that in my life?
Oh, yeah. If you start looking at quantum physics, like the convergence of science and spirituality is happening for sure. And the more they find out, the more they think they know, the less they realize that they know.
Yeah. And what I love too is science and spirituality, we're starting to come to very similar or the same conclusions. And to me, that's a very exciting moment, because pure science is actually living in the question. It's like, I wonder what is really happening here. Now, quantum, what you're bringing in is, what if there's more than one thing happening here? And what happens when we expand and open up? So in that same way, we can look at spirituality as a form of science, really. And that is, what if?
It's the original spirit of science, which was the what if, and it was about the question and the curiosity.
Yeah. And unfortunately, just like religion, some science is like, no, we have the answer.
Dogma.
But that's right. Exactly. And what's breaking down now is theology. What's breaking down now is points of view and these constructs. And when we think of structures crumbling, we often think of external. But I know for myself in my own recovery, and certainly in conscious recovery, we're talking about the internal structures of knowing that do need to be questioned. What if this isn't true? As those begin to crumble, we actually return back to that original vibration or that original sense of wholeness.
And that's why this work is so revolutionary for the world, because as people begin to heal what they have thought up until now is broken within themselves, as they reconnect with that essential wholeness, that does on a quantum level vibrate out into the world, and we create healing for the world, and it reverberates in others and across the planet.
Absolutely. And that is what is so exciting to me about the time we're living in. We're living in a time now where we've shifted the needle, if you will, to possibility rather than what we have believed to be true, right? More and more of us are saying, What if that's not true? What if what I was taught in school isn't the truth or the ultimate truth? I mean, the example I use over and over again is it was once a fact that the world was flat. Now, I have people say that's not true. It wasn't a fact. It was a perceived fact. So do we know everything?
No.
Science certainly recognizes we don't know everything. And to me, true spirituality is all I know is not all there is to know. And that opens up possibility rather than constriction.
Yeah, it's like the universe itself ever expanding into infinite possibilities.